Alrighty, well, welcome back everyone, I am Blaze here. Today's video is the Bard class review and guide for the Planes of Power expansion, playing on the EverQuest Mangler Time Lock Progression server in the year 2020. So this is a continuation of a series that I do. On the Mangler server, I have tried to put out a class review and a guide during every expansion for the Bard, Necromancer, and Ranger class. Talk about what's changed, what are some of the big things that have occurred. So, in terms of contents, we're going to talk about the new songs, alternate advancements, gear, and considerations for the next expansion, Lost Dungeons of Norath Eldon, which comes after POP. And for Mangler, there was a change for Eldon. Normally Eldon was a 3-month-long expansion. On Mangler, it got reduced to 2, and that might be the future of how it's going to occur with, say, Rizlona or the Eredune Time Lock Progression servers in the future, as of the time of this video, of course. And the primary reason being that Eldon really doesn't have much in the way of raiding content. Most people still raid Planes of Power during Eldon. It's mostly for grouping content. So, new songs. Now, the songs that are in yellow, or the text that's in yellow, is stuff that I really want to highlight. It's what I consider to be very special in this expansion. Let's get to it. So, there's 2 Cure songs. I actually have a video on this. It's about 4 minutes long. And they're called Aria of Asceticism and Aria of Innocence. And what they do, one of them is a disease and poison cure, and the other one is a curse cure. Now, these technically come out in something called the Legacy of Yakesha expansion, which is sort of like a minor grouping content pack that was put out around Planes of Power that people could buy or not. But on these Time Lock Progression servers, Legacy Yakesha drops concurrently with Planes of Power, so as soon as POP is open, you can do these quests. And it's huge, it's absolutely huge, especially the Curse Cure one, Aria of Innocence. It is the reason why Bards are unequivocally the best ones for pulling Wraith Council in Plane of Earth B. They're the only ones that can cure themselves of a curse on the way back to camp. It makes them very powerful. Next, there's some new dots. So, for the first time ever, Bards get a new disease and a poison line of dots, and they get replacement for their cold and their fire line of dots. Bards also get a new lull that lets them go up to level 65, and they get 3 new mezzes, with the final mezz working up to level 68. And the final mezz, Lullaby Morel, it has a very long range, and it also has no push, which is very nice. You don't have to worry about pushing mobs like every other mezz has always done. And what's nice about it is that most of the grouping content in Planes of Power, the mobs are either level 65 or level 68, for most of the N-tier grouping content, Planes of Power that is. So with the final mezz that you get, you can pretty much mezz almost all grouping content in this expansion. Next is a new charm called the Banshee, which lets you charm mobs up to level 57. So it means a lot of stuff from previous expansions you can finally charm. And it costs 90 mana per minute that it's on. So if you look at my character screen right here on stats, see combat mana regeneration. What you ideally want to do as a bard is you want to get that stat to at least 9. If you have 9 combat mana regeneration, you will be able to effectively charm ad infinitum using this call the Banshee without having to worry about eventually running out. So you definitely want to get at least 9 mana regeneration. Next is a replacement for your HP mana song. There's 2 updates. There's a group only one and then a AoE one. After that is War Song of Zek. which is a 60% V2 haste and a combined damage shield that can be modified by brass. And also with Rizlona, which is a replacement for the Vashir song in Luklin, and it gives you a 25% bonus to V3 haste, so over haste, and it gives a 15% bonus to direct damage nukes. So let me talk about these. These are very big. So War Song of Zek, if I click off this haste, War Song of Zek gives you 60% V2 haste, and this will help you work towards the 200% first cap of haste. And what's great about this is that so long as, say, like the melee DPS in your group, almost all melee DPS by this point have a 40% War and Haste item, which is V1. If you stack that with War Song of Zek, it'll get you up to the first cap of haste being 200%. And that makes the weapon that I've been using forever since Velius, Siren Song of the Dagger, which is a proccable 60% V2 haste, it makes this weapon irrelevant. It does not matter anymore. War Song of Zek replaces this weapon's proc. And then when you put Rizlona's Call of Flame on top of it, that will get you to the absolute cap of haste in the game at 225%. So a bard with 2 songs can pretty much get decently geared melees to absolute haste cap in the game, which is 2 songs. Huge. Absolute huge. And what's nice about that Rizlona song, it is the first time ever that bards get a song which boosts caster DPS. This is the first song that bards ever get that increase the amount of damage that casters can do. Unfortunately, it is only for direct damage nukes. So that means it's mostly only helping out wizards and magicians, sometimes druids, but that's pretty much it. But stick around, I'll talk about a new song in Eldon, which helps everybody. It also helps necromancers. Right now, necromancers are left out. The next song is called Psalm of Vishan, and I think it's the biggest song of this expansion. So since Classic, bards have been using 5 different psalms, and they're only single target, they're only single stat resists. Psalm of Vishan makes all 5 of those Classic era psalms irrelevant. Psalm of Vishan is all of those resists stacked into one. So if you look at my resists right now, if I play Psalm of Vishan, bam, I'm almost at the 500 cap on all of them. And that's not even to mention what you can do beyond that if you use a song called Amplification, which boosts the power of singing skill songs. If you play Amplification before Psalm of Vishan, it will get me to cap. Bam, right there. And I'm actually even over cap. If you look on the stats section, I'm 162 points over the 500 resist cap. So with Amplification and Psalm of Vishan, bards can pretty much get their entire group to resist cap, if not very, very close to it. This is a huge, huge song in this expansion. And if you'd like to understand how amplification works, how you can make a melody command incorporating it, like that, you'll want to check out a video, which I'll leave a link to. It's the best songs and twists to use for Luklin in Plains of Power. So you can stack the damage shield component on Psalm of Vishan with War Song of Zek to get some really nice damage shield for your tank. Next, there's a new single target slow that becomes available in this expansion that at this point, level 65, only does 54% of a slow, but I believe it goes somewhere up to the range of 70. And what's nice is it doesn't do any damage, so it lasts for a full minute and it slows a mob for 54%. So this will not break a mez or anything. The next one is an AoE dot and slow That does a slow up to 45%, so if you got a lot of stuff to slow down and you don't have to worry about mezzing it, then this is what you'd want to use. And then there's a replacement for occlusion of sound. It's called harmony of sound, which is an unresistible magic, fire, and cold debuff on a mob. This is a staple that bards play on raids to help out on raid targets, so that casters can land stuff on them. Next, alternate advancements. Now this is why I believe that the Planes of Power expansion is the single best expansion ever for bards in EverQuest. It's because the alternate advancements and also the gear that gets brought in. And I mean, I've just talked about the songs, but still, let's keep going. So Boastful Bellow and Sonic Disturbance are two huge AAs in this expansion. They are pulling abilities that let you pull a mob from a very long range away. And what's amazing about them is they're instant casts. They will not break melody. For the first time ever, bards can pull mobs without breaking melody. This is amazing. Now my go-to one to use is actually Sonic Disturbance. I believe it has a longer range than Boastful Bellow, and it only does 1 damage, so it will not cause mobs to summon. But Boastful Bellow, say if you have Sonic Disturbance, it's still on cooldown. It takes a couple seconds for it to come back. If Sonic Disturbance is on cooldown, then use Boastful Bellow. It does 200 damage at the initial hit, and when it breaks, it can do somewhere like 200 to 600, depending if you critic or not. Boastful Bellow does use Endurance, so you can run out of that resource. At this point in time, it's not really super useful, and oftentimes it can cause mobs to start summoning you, so I don't tend to use it very often, but from what I saw in a later expansion, Gates of Discord or GOD, it has an added rank. It has an added bonus effect at later ranks of where it acts kind of like an occlusion. It has a magic, fire, and cold debuff built into it. So I could see that being very useful in later expansions, because that will actually be a very good reason to use this as the primary pulling, as opposed to Sonic Disturbance at this point in time. And now the granddaddy of all AAs in this expansion, the granddaddy of it, Fading Memories. This is the AA that made bards effectively capable of being the best raid pullers to replace monks on raids for pulling. Bards are always the best group pullers, but they always lacked an ability to drop aggro, and that's what Fading Memories lets them do. So Fading Memories is an instant ability that lets a bard drop all aggro on mobs that are level 75 or lower. Now, what happens if a mob's over 75? This is typically only specific raid targets, but if a mob is over level 75, it will drop you to the lowest on the rampage list. So, oftentimes, bards are notorious for this. They're oftentimes the first people to get on aggro on a raid target, and many of these raid targets, the way they work is, depending on who got on aggro first, is sort of the list that it makes, and the person that's on aggro after the main tank is the person who gets hit sporadically. It's called rampage hits, and it's a quick way to get smoked. It's a very quick way to get smoked as a bard. Bards are notorious for getting on rampage, and with Fading Memories, even if you can't get off the aggro table, it'll lower you so that you're no longer getting hit off a rampage, which helps save your life. It's very big for saving you. Now Fading Memories, it got altered. It used to cost 900 mana flat. Now, at the first rank, it costs 12% of your total mana pool, which is better at this point in time. If I get a calculator out, and I take my total mana pool, which is 6393, and divide that by 12, every time I click Fading Memories, it costs 532 mana. And previously, it used to be 900 flat, so I save around 400 mana per fade cast. The thing is, though, in later expansions, when a bard's mana pool goes up, it will get to a point where it actually costs more than 900 mana. You'll actually get kind of messed over by that patch change, but take it as it is. It's better right now. Next, Burst of Power. It is an AA line which allows bards to double attack at all. Bards cannot double attack at this point in time without putting points into Burst of Power, so it can boost your melee DPS. Combat Fury, which is huge for rangers, not as big for bards, but it lets you have a better chance to critical hit. Combat Agility, Combat Stability, and Double Riposte, increasing your ability to survive and take hits or avoid hits. Fleet of Foot, I'll come back to it. Planar Power is a stat cap boost AA. So at 65, the highest your stats can go to is 255. And then as you level up, it goes up to around 280. And with Planar Power, you can boost it even further up to 305. So you see many of my stats are at the 305 cap, which is very nice. You can get more out of your gear. And Reaching Notes. Reaching Notes is a toggleable AA. You can turn it on or off. And what it does, it extends the range of your beneficial songs. This is very nice for raids. It lets you be a little bit more flexible with your location. So in Luklin, it only gives you a 25% max range. In Planes of Power, it gets further ranked, so it lets you go up to 65% bonus on the range. So the way you can tell how big the range is if you right click on a song, you have the unmodded range, which is 60 for this song. So if I do not use Reaching Notes, it'll only go 60 units, and with Reaching Notes on, it'll go up to 99, so almost 100. Almost 100. So I got a lot more range on this mana song. Or say for my Resist, it gives me a lot more range. Instead of 50, it goes up to 82. Very useful on raids. Definitely something you want to get. And now let's talk about Fleet of Foot. So Fleet of Foot is a AA that lets you boost how effective Silos works. I thought it worked on group members. No, it only works on yourself. I believe this is the absolute fastest you can go in EverQuest. It lets you go the absolute fastest that you possibly can in this game at this point in time. Let me use it. If I'd use a different instrument, if you watch my velocity right here, 76. So the fastest mounts that are available in the game at this point in time only let you go to 76 velocity, and Silos without Fleet of Foot only goes 76. That's the fastest you can go with Silos without Fleet of Foot. Now, if I use a percussion instrument to modify it, I can go up to 81 velocity. And if I strafe, which makes it go a little faster, it goes up to 82. But if I run in a straight line, 81 is the max speed. So what I've noticed is that the Epic is not enough of a modifier. It's a 0.8 modifier to get you to that cap. You actually have to equip a drum or something that has at least maybe like a 10 mod is good enough. So you have to have something better than the Epic to go max speed, but it lets you go faster than the best mounts available in the game and previous ranks of Silos, which is nice. It really ticked me off personally that you could get a mount that goes as fast as Bard speed, and with this AA line, it fixes that issue. It should never have been possible to have a mount that goes as fast as a Bard. That just kind of ticks me off, but hey, it's fixed now. Next, let's talk about gear. Planes of Power is a tremendous, groundbreaking expansion because it is the first one ever that has instrument modifiers on worn gear. So what do I mean by that? So the best general gear in this expansion for bards is called Rizlona. It comes from the elemental armor molds that you get from high-level raid content. And there's 3 pieces of it that actually have instrument mods. The BP, the boots, and I believe the arms. So, show this stuff. So the arms have a 8 string mod, which is as good as the Epic. The boots have an 8 percussion mod, which is as good as the Epic. And the chest has a 16 brass mod, which is double as good as the Epic. The chest is essentially the second best brass mod in the game at this point in time. So what's cool about this BP is that it has essentially replaced the best horn that I have. It's better than my horn. And there's only one other item in the game that's better than this BP. And what's nice about these gear pieces is that they permanently, because they're equipped, they're permanently giving their modifier, as opposed to me having to swap instruments to get that effect. And there's some other stuff that has instrument modifiers, such as the Shroud of Provocation from Plane to Time, which has a wind mod of 12, which is better than the Epic, and the Abalone Engraved Tribal Mask from Plane to Water, which has a singing mod of 10, which is also better than the Epic. You want to make sure you get all. You want to get singing, wind, brass, percussion, and stringed. You want to make sure you get all of those on your gear, because in Planes of Power, the Epic becomes replaced. The Epic 1.0 gets replaced by better weapons, and you want to make sure that you're not. The Epic, what's so critical about it is it accesses all instruments simultaneously. If you're not equipping the Epic anymore, that means you're losing the mod on all instruments. So you want to make sure your gear is compensating for the loss of the Epic. So let's talk about some other stuff. So Eye of Dreams is a brass mod. It's not as good as the breastplate. What's nice about it is it has an AA line, a permanent unlock AA line once you right click this, where it gives you 400 extra mana permanently. And I have some links of the other items. Celestial Cloak. This is a huge item to get in this expansion. Celestial Cloak drops in Plane of Time off of Bertux, and it has a permanent AA unlock of where it boosts your mana cap by 5. And why this is important is because at this point in time in the game, the absolute mana cap that you can get from gear is 15. You cannot get more than 15 mana regeneration from worn gear. So this cloak lets you go up to 20 from gear. So if I had that cloak, my mana combat regeneration will go up to 27. And you want your mana regeneration to be as high as you possibly can as a bard, because clarity doesn't work on you, because the Beast Lord mana regeneration doesn't work on you, your own HP Mana Song doesn't work on you to boost mana regeneration. The only things you can do are use mod rods, use your AAs, and have equipped gear. So the highest you can get your mana regeneration is huge, because it lets you fade more often, use Fading Memories, and it lets you use Denon's Desperate Dirge more often. Bards have always been really capped by their mana regeneration capabilities. So I believe the absolute cap for mana regeneration in Planes of Power, there's no higher you can go as a bard than it looks like 27. You can only, well, you can go 28 if you were to sit down or have a mount, but if you're standing up, it's really probably going to be 27. That's as high as mana regeneration you can get at this point in time as a bard. Let's talk about weapons. So there's new instrument weapons available in this expansion. So the first one is a Rune Stamp Blade, which has a string mod on it of 10, and it has a proccable rune. This comes from Plane of Air. Never once saw it, but it'd be nice to get. The next one is Edge of Eternity, which I believe is the second best in slot for bards. Second best in slot weapon for bards. Drops off a Saren in Plane of Time, and it has a proc direct damage nuke for like 100 or something. 20 damage, 20 delay. It's a very good damage delay on this weapon. And then let's get to the absolute best in slot weapon in this game for bards, and that is Songblade of the Eternal. This is essentially the weapon that replaces the Epic 1.0. So it has a singing mod of 15, which is the best singing mod in the game at this point in time. There's no item which will boost your singing skill any higher. And it has a clickable effect that takes 3 seconds to cast that essentially replaces the Epic's proc, the Epic 1.0 proc. And it boosts your attack speed, your V2 haste by 60. It increases strength by 50, and it increases your attack by 50 for all your group mates. And it lasts for 15 minutes once you cast it once. So this essentially replaces the Epic 1.0's proc called Dance of the Blade. And what's nice about it is you don't have to get it to proc via combat. You can just click it and it lasts for 2 minutes as opposed to 3 minutes with the Epic 1.0. So you don't actually have to melee anymore to get that effect. You can reliably have it on your group mates. And next, let's go back. Let's talk about new instruments. Been a long time for new instruments for bards. These are all very, very rare drops. They're not very reliable. But if you can get them, bid big. Make sure you beat everybody else that's there trying to get these. Blaring Horn of Fire is the best brass mod in the game, outside of the Rizlona BP. At 25, and drops in Plane of Fire off these minis before you get to Fenin Row. War Drums of the Wraith are the best percussion mod available in the game. Drop in Plane of Earth A off of a pretty easy cycle. It has a clickable dot, but it's kind of useless because it doesn't get modified by the percussion mod. It's kind of weak without it. But what's nice about this War Drums of the Wraith is I believe it gives enough of a percussion mod to the point where using your Elemental and Purifying Chorus are an AoE resist boost, whereas Psalm of Vishan only affects your group. So there's scenarios and raids of where there's just not enough bards to cover all groups, so it's kind of best if one of the bards plays Elemental or Purifying Chorus to cover the people that are missing out on resist. I believe with that War Drums of the Wraith, it has enough of a mod to get you to almost that 500 cap, if not hit the 500 cap with playing these songs. So it's very, very useful. And next is Lute of the Flowing Waters. This is the best string mod in the game outside of it's a Quorum. I think it's like called the Earth Embracer Fortitude. Yeah, this is the no, this would be the third best, because the string mod in the Kunark era zone, Vishan's Peak. There's a stringed instrument in Vishan's Peak, which is a 1.5 mod. Earth Embracer Fortitude drops off a Quorum. It's a 14 string mod. It's pretty much the best gear string mod that you can get in the game. It would replace my current Plane of Hate stringed instrument. And Lute to the Flowing Waters is the absolute best string mod in the game at this point in time. It's a 24 mod. So make your HP regen a lot better on Cantana or whatever you're using, your HP Mana Song. And it has an instant cast group version of the HP Mana Song. And I believe it's in the mana regen on it's always capped whether or not you're using the instrument, so you can always keep up Mana Song even if you're, say, having to stop, even if you're having to drop some songs. Say if you're like mezzing 4 mobs simultaneously, you can always keep up Mana Song if you were to have this. And you can always keep up Mana Song, say like if you're dealing with a dot or something, you can always keep yourself healing. And for your group, it's an amazing item. So yeah, these are the best mods in the game at this point in time. Now let's talk about Eldon, Lost Dungeons of Norath. So in this expansion, there are augments that become available that can boost. You can put them on your gear, like right here, slot 1, type 8. I could put an augment here that boosts attack, or I could put an augment here that boosts stamina or whatever, or resists if I felt short on resists. So there's augments on gear. There's also new augments you can put on your weapons for, like, say, procs or healing. I'm really interested in these augments that spawn swarm pets. I really like this get the swarm pet augment. Also, there's a replacement for the Foofle line of dot. Foofles is a dot that on top of itself, it actually reduces magic resist of a mob, so you can stack this on top of, say, your Occlusion or Harmony of Sound line to further reduce magic resist on a target. And this is what I referenced back with Rizlona, Call of the Muse. This replaces that Rizlona's Call of Flame for one component. So right now, I can only boost the damage output of direct damage nukes. But with Call of the Muse and Eldon, it boosts the damage component of dots. So with Call of the Muse, a bard can pretty much make any caster using anything, nukes and dots, be more effective. Bards will cover the entire gamut, as opposed to primarily just wizards and magicians at this point in time. So this is a huge, huge song to get in Eldon. But that is all for this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.